Marcus Reed had everything he needed: a loving father, a beautiful home, a family business waiting for him, and a family that prayed together and believed in God. But Marcus didn't feel blessed. He felt trapped. Every time he looked beyond the quiet streets of his hometown, he imagined another life waiting for him: a bigger life, a more exciting life, a life without anyone telling him what he should or shouldn't do. Marcus believed freedom was somewhere beyond his father's house. He had no idea that the farther he traveled from home, the more he would discover just how valuable home really was. And before it was over, Marcus would lose almost everything. Everything. Except the love of a father who refused to give up on him. Robert Reed had raised his two sons, Daniel and Marcus, to understand the importance of faith, family, and hard work. Their mother had passed away several years earlier, and losing her had brought Robert even closer to his boys. Every Sunday morning, the Reed family attended church. Every Sunday afternoon, they gathered around Robert's dining room table for dinner. And whenever life became difficult, Robert reminded his sons of something their mother used to say: "Don't ever get so far away that you forget the way home." Daniel, the oldest son, had taken those words to heart. At 29, Daniel worked alongside his father in the successful landscaping company Robert had spent decades building. Daniel was dependable, responsible, hardworking. Marcus was different. At 23, Marcus wanted more. He loved his family, but he had become restless. While Daniel saw the family business as an opportunity, Marcus saw it as an obligation. One afternoon, Marcus and Daniel were loading equipment into one of the company trucks. Daniel smiled. "Dad says he's thinking about putting us in charge of another crew next year." Marcus barely reacted. "That's good." Daniel looked at him. "Good? Man, that's great. Dad's talking about expanding." Marcus closed the truck door. "You ever think about doing something else?" Daniel frowned. "Like what?" "I don't know. Traveling, moving somewhere, seeing something besides this town?" Daniel laughed. "There's nothing wrong with this town." "Exactly." Daniel's smile disappeared. Marcus continued. "Nothing ever happens here." Daniel studied his younger brother. "You've got a good life, Marcus." Marcus looked toward the road. "Maybe I want a different one." Over the next several months, Marcus became increasingly dissatisfied. Social media didn't help. Every night he watched videos of people traveling, partying, driving expensive cars, and living in luxury apartments. Marcus compared their highlight reels to his everyday life. And slowly, gratitude disappeared. One evening after Sunday dinner, Marcus remained at the table after Daniel left. Robert noticed something was bothering him. "What's on your mind, son?" Marcus took a breath. "Dad, I want to talk to you about something." Robert sat across from him. "I'm listening." Marcus hesitated. Then he said it. "I want the money you've been saving for me." Robert's expression changed. "What money?" "My inheritance. The money you said would eventually be mine." Robert stared at his son. "Eventually, Marcus." "I know." "Then why are we talking about it now?" Marcus looked down. "Because I want it now." Robert leaned back slowly. "For what?" "I want to leave." The words seemed to fill the entire room. Robert didn't speak. Marcus continued. "I need to live my own life." "You can live your own life without walking away from everything we've built." Marcus shook his head. "Dad, that's your dream, and Daniel's dream. It's not mine." Robert's voice softened. "Where are you planning to go?" "I don't know yet." "Do you have a job?" "No." "A plan?" "I'll figure it out." Robert sighed. "Marcus, that's not a plan." Marcus became frustrated. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm 23 years old. I don't need permission to live." Robert looked hurt. "I'm not trying to control you." "Then let me go." Robert became quiet. Finally, he asked, "If I give you this money, are you leaving?" Marcus nodded. "Yes." Robert looked toward the empty chair where Marcus's mother used to sit. Then he looked back at his son. "Give me a few days." That night, Marcus went to bed believing he had finally won his freedom. But downstairs, Robert sat alone at the kitchen table. His Bible rested in front of him. Daniel walked into the room. Dad? Robert wiped his eyes. He wants to leave. Daniel pulled out a chair. Then don't give him the money. Robert shook his head. If I don't, he'll leave angry and empty-handed. Maybe that's better than letting him waste everything. Robert stared at his Bible. I can protect him from a lot of things, Daniel. His voice trembled. But I can't protect him from every decision he chooses to make. Daniel became quiet. Robert bowed his head. Lord, I've taught him everything I know to teach him. Tears rolled down his face. Now I'm putting him in your hands. Several days later, Robert transferred Marcus's portion of the money to him. Marcus packed his clothes into his car. Robert stood on the porch watching. Daniel stayed near the doorway. Marcus closed the trunk. Well, I guess this is it. Daniel shook his head. You don't have to do this. Marcus smiled. I'll be fine. Robert walked down the steps. He handed Marcus a small Bible. Marcus looked at it. Dad, take it. Marcus reluctantly placed it in his bag. Robert hugged his son. For several seconds, Marcus simply stood there. Then Robert whispered, You can always come home. Marcus pulled away. I'm going to make you proud. Robert smiled sadly. You already had. Marcus climbed into the car and drove away. Robert remained in the driveway long after the car disappeared. Lord, he whispered, please bring my boy home. Marcus moved several hours away to a large city, and at first, everything seemed perfect. He rented a beautiful apartment with a view of the skyline. He bought expensive clothes, a new watch, new furniture. He ate at restaurants where one meal cost more than his father used to spend feeding the entire family on Sunday. Marcus quickly made friends, or at least, people who called themselves friends. Every weekend there was another party, another club, another expensive dinner. Marcus became known as the person who always picked up the bill. Marcus got it, someone would shout, and Marcus loved hearing it. For the first time, he felt important. Nobody asked him about church. Nobody expected him to work at the family business. Nobody questioned his decisions. Marcus thought, this is freedom. When Robert called, Marcus often ignored the phone. Sometimes he would send a quick text. I'm good, Dad. Busy. Talk later. Weeks became months. The Bible Robert gave him remained at the bottom of a drawer, unopened. One afternoon, Marcus checked his bank account. The balance was much lower than he expected. He stared at the screen. That can't be right. But it was. Marcus told himself he would slow down. Then Friday came, his friends called, and Marcus went out again. Soon he began using credit cards. Then he sold some investments. Then he borrowed money. Still, he kept pretending everything was fine. Until one evening at an expensive restaurant, Marcus handed the waiter his card. A few minutes later, the waiter returned. I'm sorry, sir, your card was declined. Marcus laughed nervously. Try it again. I already did. Marcus's friends looked at one another. Marcus pulled out another card. Use this one. Declined. The table became uncomfortable. Finally, one of his friends paid the bill. Marcus tried to laugh it off. Bank problem. But everyone knew. The next weekend, Marcus didn't receive any invitations. He sent messages. No response. He called people he had spent thousands of dollars entertaining. Voicemail. Marcus finally understood. They didn't love Marcus. They loved what Marcus could provide. And when the money disappeared, so did they. Things unraveled quickly. Marcus couldn't afford the apartment. His landlord gave him notice. He sold the watch, then the furniture, then his car. Within months, nearly everything his father had given him was gone. Marcus applied for job after job. But with little experience outside the family business and large gaps in his employment history, opportunities were limited. Eventually, he found work washing dishes and cleaning floors at a small restaurant. The pay barely covered a room in an old apartment building. Some nights, Marcus ate only one meal. Other nights, he ate nothing. He thought about calling home. Many times he picked up the phone, but shame always stopped him. What could he possibly say? Dad, you were right? Daniel was right. I wasted everything? Marcus imagined the disappointment on his father's face. So he stayed away? One bitterly cold evening, Marcus took the restaurant trash outside. He hadn't eaten all day. As he lifted one of the bags, it tore. Food spilled onto the pavement. Marcus looked down. There was half a sandwich wrapped in paper. Someone had taken only a few bites. Marcus stared at it. His stomach growled. He slowly reached toward it. Then he froze. Marcus stood there looking at his own hand. "What am I doing?" He dropped to the ground beside the dumpster. For the first time, Marcus stopped blaming everyone else. He stopped blaming his father. He stopped blaming the economy. He stopped blaming his friends. He stopped blaming life. And Marcus finally faced the truth. "I did this." Tears filled his eyes. "I did this to myself." Then memories began flooding his mind. His father's Sunday dinners, Daniel laughing at the table, his mother's favorite chair, the smell of breakfast on Saturday mornings, his father's prayers. And suddenly Marcus remembered something Robert had once told him. "Son, you can run from home, but you can never run beyond the reach of God's grace." Marcus began to cry. Right there beside a dumpster, Marcus Reed prayed. Not a polished prayer, not a church prayer, just the desperate prayer of a broken man. "God," Marcus struggled to speak. "I don't even know if you want to hear from me." He wiped his face. "I walked away from you." His shoulders shook. "I walked away from my father." He looked toward the sky. "I wasted everything." Then Marcus whispered, "Please help me get home." The next morning, Marcus quit his job. He packed everything he owned into one worn backpack. There wasn't much, a few shirts, a pair of jeans, and at the bottom, the Bible his father had given him. Marcus held it for several seconds. Then he put it carefully inside the backpack. He bought the cheapest bus ticket home. During the long ride, Marcus practiced what he would say. "Dad, I've sinned against God and against you. Again. I don't deserve to be your son. Again. Just give me a job." His father always needed workers. Marcus decided he wouldn't ask for his old bedroom. He wouldn't ask for money. He wouldn't ask for anything. If his father allowed him to work, that would be enough. Marcus didn't know that Robert had never stopped praying. Every morning, Robert prayed for his son. Every evening, he looked toward the road. Sometimes Daniel became frustrated. "Dad, it's been almost 2 years." Robert nodded. "I know." "You don't even know where he is." "No. What if he's never coming back?" Robert looked at his oldest son. "Then I'll keep praying until I take my last breath." Daniel shook his head. "You can't wait forever." Robert smiled gently. "I'm his father." Then he looked toward the road again. "I can wait longer than he can stay lost." Marcus got off the bus several miles from home. He walked. With every step, his heart beat faster. Then he finally saw it. The house. Home. Marcus stopped. For a moment, he almost turned around. Then he remembered his prayer. "Help me get home." Marcus took another step. Robert was sitting on the porch when he noticed someone walking in the distance. The young man was thinner. His clothes were worn, his shoulders were slumped. But Robert knew. A father knows. Robert stood slowly. His eyes widened. "Marcus?" Marcus looked toward the porch. Robert began walking. Then walking became running. Marcus dropped his backpack. "Dad!" Robert ran down the driveway. Marcus began crying. "Dad, I'm sorry." Robert threw his arms around him. Marcus tried to speak. "I sinned against God and against you." Robert held him tighter. "I wasted everything." Marcus could barely breathe through his tears. "I don't deserve to be your son." Robert pulled back and looked at him. Marcus continued. "If you'll just give me a job?" "No." Marcus froze. Robert placed both hands on his son's face. "You're not coming home as my employee." Tears streamed down Robert's cheeks. "You're coming home as my son." Marcus collapsed into his father's arms. "I thought you'd hate me." Robert shook his head. "I hated what was destroying you." Then he hugged him again. "But I never stopped loving you." Robert called everyone. Food filled the kitchen. Family and friends came to the house. Someone turned on music. For the first time in almost 2 years, laughter filled Marcus's childhood home again. Robert gave Marcus clean clothes. Marcus showered and shaved. When he looked into the mirror, he hardly recognized himself. But something had changed. Marcus wasn't the same young man who had driven away believing he deserved something better. He had returned understanding that everything he had once taken for granted had actually been a blessing. When Marcus walked downstairs, Robert smiled. "My son is home." But Daniel wasn't celebrating. He had worked late that evening. When he arrived, he heard music before he entered the house. He saw cars parked everywhere. Then someone told him, "Marcus came home." Daniel stopped. "What?" "Your brother's back." Daniel looked through the window. There was Marcus. Clean clothes, food, people hugging him, his father smiling. Something inside Daniel hardened. Robert noticed his oldest son standing outside and went to him. "Daniel!" Daniel shook his head. "No." "Come inside." "For what?" "Your brother came home?" Daniel's voice rose. "I know." Robert remained calm. "I've been here every day." Daniel pointed toward the house. "I worked beside you while he was out wasting everything." "Daniel, I didn't abandon you." "I know." "I didn't waste your money." "I know." "And he comes back and gets a celebration?" Robert stepped closer. "Son, everything I have is still yours." Daniel looked away. "You've always been with me." Robert placed his hand on his shoulder. "But your brother was lost." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "And now he's home." Robert looked toward the house. "We're not celebrating what he did." Then he looked back at Daniel. "We're celebrating what God brought him out of." Daniel remained silent. Slowly, he looked through the window again. Marcus noticed him. The brothers stared at one another. Marcus walked outside. He stopped several feet away. "Daniel!" Daniel didn't answer. Marcus lowered his head. "You were right." Daniel's expression softened slightly. "I was selfish." Marcus continued. "I hurt Dad. I hurt you. And I'm sorry." There was a long silence. Then Daniel stepped forward. He hugged his brother. And Robert stood nearby, crying. Later that night, after everyone left, Marcus walked upstairs to his childhood bedroom. It looked almost exactly as he remembered. He sat on the bed. Then he opened his backpack and pulled out his Bible. For the first time since leaving home, Marcus opened it. Inside the front cover was a note written in his father's handwriting. Marcus had never noticed it before. "Son, no matter how far you travel, God's grace can still find you. Love, Dad." Marcus stared at the words. Tears dropped onto the page. Robert appeared in the doorway. Marcus looked up. "You knew I'd come back?" Robert smiled. "I prayed you would." Marcus shook his head. "I don't understand how you can forgive me." Robert sat beside him. "Because I've needed God's forgiveness too." Marcus looked down at the Bible. Robert continued. "Grace isn't something we earn, son." He placed his arm around Marcus. "That's what makes it grace." Marcus leaned against his father. For the first time in years, he was home. Not just physically. His heart had come home too. Jesus told the story of the prodigal son. Jesus told the story of the prodigal son because he wanted us to understand the heart of our Heavenly Father. Some people are like Marcus. They've walked away, they've made mistakes, they've wasted opportunities, they've ignored God's voice. And now shame tells them, "You can't go back." But shame is lying. You may have walked far from God, but you are not beyond His reach. You may have wasted years, but you are not beyond restoration. You may feel unworthy, but grace was never based on your worthiness. The prodigal son returned expecting to become a servant. Instead, his father restored him as a son. Jesus said in Luke 15:24, "For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." Maybe someone listening to this story needs to hear these words today. Come home. Come back to prayer. Come back to God's word. Come back to the faith you abandoned. Come back to the Father. Don't allow shame to convince you that you've gone too far. Because when you turn toward God with a repentant heart, you'll discover something beautiful. The Father never stopped loving you. He never stopped caring. And His grace never stopped reaching for you. Marcus thought leaving home would give him freedom. But he discovered that true freedom wasn't found in running away. It was found in returning to the Father. And sometimes, the greatest testimony isn't that you never wandered. It's that when you finally came to yourself, you knew where to come home. Luke 15:20. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion. Luke 15:24. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.